He has got to go. What's up, Vikings Nation? Welcome to the Minnesota Vikings Syndicate. I'm your host, Trey Wicks. Now, before we get started, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. We're only 10 or so away from our goal of 700. We're right there. So make sure to subscribe, and you can help me reach that goal. So look, I think we've witnessed enough football at this point in the season to realize what works, what doesn't work, who belongs in the building, and who doesn't belong in the building. And let me tell you, not only am I screaming this, but many, many fans are as well. Ed Donatell, you have got to get out of town, okay? He's not helping this team any. The defense just can't make any stops. There's nothing, they don't look ready. We have no pressure. We barely send the blitz. We're getting beat. We're getting sliced and diced down the field. I mean, they're finding the open zones. It's atrocious. It's terrible. I hate looking at it. Okay, and after the loss to the Detroit Lions, it was very apparent that we have no pass rush. Okay, we have no secondary, basically. We do to an extent, but they're non-existent. Okay, we got to be better, and Ed Donatell is not the answer. He's not. And look, I'm not saying he's going to be fired right now at this point in the season. It's just that's not realistic. But in the offseason, he has got to go. But here are three potential candidates for that job. We'll start with kind of talking about the situation, brought to you by Adam Patrick of the Vikings Wire, who said, now when the Vikings hired Ed Donatell to be their defensive coordinator this past offseason, the hope was that he would be able to help improve a defense that ranked 24th in the NFL points allowed in 2021. Now, at first, it seemed like Donatell's bend but don't break approach was going to work for Minnesota's defense. But during their last few games, the defense has been getting gashed by almost every opponent they've gone up against. Now, Sunday inside Ford Field was just the latest example, as the Detroit Lions racked up 464 total yards against the Vikings' bad impression of an NFL defense. Minnesota has now allowed at least 400 yards to their last 5 opponents. Can't happen, okay? With only 4 weeks left in the regular season, the Vikings moving on from Ed Donatell anytime soon probably isn't very likely, okay? But if Minnesota wants to make a change, they do have a few guys on their current coaching staff that have called plays for a defense in the past. Now, who are some of those possible internal candidates to replace Donatell the Vikings might want to consider before their dreams for the upcoming playoffs are crushed? Well, there's 3 of them. Let's talk about them. We'll dive right into it, starting right off the bat with Mike Pettine. I believe that's how you say his name. If it's not, I apologize. His current role at the Vikings is he's the assistant head coach, and he's had 8 years as an experienced defensive coordinator, so he knows somewhat what he's doing. And before joining Kevin O'Connell's staff as Minnesota's assistant head coach this year, Mike Pettine also recently spent the 2018, 19, and 20 seasons as the defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers. Now, during the 2020 campaign, the Packers ranked 13th in the NFL in points allowed, 9th in yards allowed, 13th in rushing yards allowed, and 7th in passing yards allowed. Green Bay also ranked 10th in the league in sacks and 17th in expected points contributed in 2020. The second candidate, Greg Minuski. I hope I said that right as well. He's currently the inside linebackers coach for the Vikings, and he's had 12 years of experience as a defensive coordinator. Now, not only does Greg Minuski have more than a decade of experience as a D coordinator in the NFL, but he also spent part of his time or his playing career in the league as a member of the Minnesota Vikings. From 91 to 93, Minuski was a linebacker for Minnesota, and he appeared in a total of 43 games for the Vikings, but none of them were starts. And last but not least, Durante Jones. He's currently the defensive backs coach for the Vikings. He's had 1 year as experience of a defensive coordinator. Durante Jones is the guy with the least amount of defensive coordinator experience on this list, and his lone year as a D coordinator actually took place at the college level. After spending the 2020 campaign as the Vikings defensive backs coach, Jones left Minnesota in 2021 to become the defensive coordinator at LSU. I think that sort of worked out for him. I don't know. You tell me. But at the same time, Ed Donatell's not going to get fired. Okay, not at this point in the season. It's just not realistic, right? You're already 14 weeks in. Let's just see what happens throughout the rest of the year. But if it's as urgent as not only the fan base thinks, but if the Vikings think so as well, a change might be imminent. Why not? The scheme ain't working. We get no pressure on the quarterback. You got Harrison Smith and Zadarius Smith, and you barely get sacks. What are we doing? Send somebody up the middle, please. Like, can we do something? Let's keep everything in front, or at least take away those open zones so that the offense or the opposing offenses don't just slowly, methodically march down the field. There's a reason we've had a lot of close games this year. Okay? This defense looks a lot like it did last season. And not only am I fed up, I'm assuming you guys are fed up with it as well. Ed Donatel, your time is almost up, pal. And I can't wait to see what happens this offseason. So make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. We're only 10 away from 700.